In the opulent dining salon of the SS Aurora, a scream pierces the night. Sir Reginald Hargrove, the ship's wealthy owner, lies dead, stabbed in a locked cabin. Hercule Poirot, the master detective, steps aboard this luxurious Mediterranean cruise, where every passenger hides a secret. As the ship sails toward Marseille, a stolen sapphire necklace, a mysterious broker, a hidden passage, and a second poisoning unravel a web of smuggling and betrayal. With suspects like the nervous heiress Clara Beaumont, her secretive fiancé Victor Langston, and the elusive Mr. Dubois, Poirot's little gray cells race against time to unmask a cunning killer before they strike again. Will he solve the deadly puzzle, or will the Aurora become a tomb for justice? Chapter 1. The Luxurious Departure. The SS Aurora gleamed under the Mediterranean sun, its white hull a dazzling contrast against the azure waters of Southampton's port. The ship, a marvel of modern engineering, was the pride of the Hargrove line, owned by the enigmatic Sir Reginald Hargrove. Its decks, adorned with polished brass and teak, promised luxury to the elite passengers who milled about, their voices a symphony of anticipation and privilege. Hercule Poirot, the renowned Belgian detective, stood at the edge of the gangway, his small, precise frame immaculate in a tailored suit, his mustache waxed to perfection. He adjusted his hat, shielding his eyes from the glare, and surveyed the scene with a keen, almost predatory interest. Poirot had been invited aboard by Sir Reginald himself, a man whose wealth was matched only by his penchant for secrecy. The invitation, delivered by a crisp letter on embossed stationery, had piqued Poirot's curiosity. A voyage of leisure, Sir Reginald had written, with the finest company the world can offer. Yet Poirot, whose little gray cells never rested, sensed an undercurrent of purpose beneath the invitation. Why would a man like Hargrove, rumored to dabble in ventures less than legal, insist on the presence of a detective known for unmasking the guilty? As he ascended the gangway, Poirot's eyes darted from face to face. A young couple, the woman radiant in a silk dress, laughed too loudly, their gaiety tinged with nervousness. A stern-looking man in a naval officer's coat barked orders at a porter struggling with a trunk. A woman in a veiled hat stood alone, her posture rigid as if guarding a secret. Poirot's lips twitched. "Mon Dieu," he murmured. Already the stage is set for a drama. At the top of the gangway, a steward in a pristine white uniform greeted him. "Monsieur Poirot, welcome aboard the SS Aurora. Sir Reginald has requested your presence in the Grand Salon at 6 o'clock for cocktails. Your cabin is on the promenade deck, suite A12. The steward handed him a key, its weight reassuring in Poirot's gloved hand. "Merci," Poirot replied, his voice smooth as velvet. "And Sir Reginald? He is aboard already?" "Oh yes, sir, he's been overseeing preparations all morning. A very particular gentleman, if I may say." Poirot nodded, filing away the steward's tone, a mix of respect and caution. He made his way to his suite, a compact but elegant space with a mahogany desk, a plush armchair, and a porthole framing the sea beyond. He unpacked methodically, arranging his toiletries with the precision of a surgeon. His traveling companion, Captain Hastings, had declined this voyage, citing a prior engagement, leaving Poirot to navigate this mystery alone. A pity, Poirot mused, but perhaps solitude will sharpen the mind. At 6 o'clock, the grand salon buzzed with activity. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over tables draped in white linen, where passengers sipped champagne and nibbled on canapes. Poirot, now in a black dinner jacket, entered with the air of a man who belonged yet stood apart. His eyes scanned the room, cataloging every detail: the gleam of a diamond bracelet, the flicker of a nervous glance, the clink of glasses raised, in toasts that felt rehearsed. Sir Reginald Hargrove stood at the center of the room, a towering figure with silver hair and a commanding presence. His tailored suit spoke of wealth, but his eyes, sharp and restless, betrayed a man who never relaxed. He spotted Poirot and strode over, his smile broad but not entirely genuine. "Monsieur Poirot," he boomed, extending a hand. I'm delighted. You could join us. The Aurora is my pride and joy, and I trust you'll find this voyage illuminating. Poirot shook his hand, noting the firmness of the grip. Monsieur, it is an honor. A ship so magnificent must surely hold many stories. Hargrove's smile faltered for a fraction of a second. Stories? Oh yes, but let's hope they're all pleasant ones. He gestured toward a group of passengers nearby. Allow me to introduce you to some of our distinguished guests. First was Clara Beaumont, a vision in emerald green, her auburn hair swept into an elegant chignon. Her smile was dazzling, but her eyes darted to a man at her side, Victor Langston, her fiancé, according to Hargrove. Victor, lean and dark-haired, had the look of a man who calculated every move. His handshake was brief, his smile tight. A pleasure, Monsieur Poirot, he said, though his tone suggested otherwise. Next was Dr. Evelyn Marsh, a woman in her 40s with a no-nonsense air. Her spectacles and plain attire contrasted with the opulence around her, but her sharp gaze missed nothing. I've read of your cases, she said, her voice crisp. I hope you're here for pleasure, not work. Poirot inclined his head. Madame, for me, the two are often intertwined. Finally, Hargrove introduced a man who stood apart, his face half hidden by the brim of a fedora. Mr. Dubois, Hargrove said, a businessman from Paris. Dubois offered a curt nod, his eyes avoiding Poirot's. There was something elusive about him, a shadow that clung despite the bright lights of the salon. As the evening progressed, Poirot circulated, his ears attuned to every snippet of conversation. Clara and Victor argued in hushed tones near a marble pillar, their words indistinct but their tension palpable. Dr. Marsh spoke animatedly with the ship's captain, a ruddy-faced man named Captain Whitaker, about navigation routes, though Whitaker seemed distracted, his eyes scanning the room. Dubois lingered near the bar, nursing a drink and watching the crowd with an intensity that unnerved Poirot. Dinner was announced, and the passengers moved to the dining salon, a cavernous room with gilded walls and a ceiling painted with cherubs. Poirot was seated at Hargrove's table, alongside Clara, Victor, Dr. Marsh, and a new face. Mr. Harold Grayson, a former business partner of Hargrove's whose ruddy complexion and loud laugh suggested a man fond of excess. Grayson clapped Hargrove on the back, but Poirot noticed Hargrove's jaw tighten. The meal was a triumph of culinary art. Lobster bisque, roasted pheasant, and a chocolate soufflé that melted on the tongue. Yet Poirot's attention was not on the food but on the dynamics at the table. Clara toyed with her necklace, a sapphire pendant that caught the light, her fingers trembling slightly. Victor's gaze followed her every move, possessive and wary. Grayson, already in his cups, made a pointed remark about Hargrove's shady dealings, earning a sharp look from his host. Dr. Marsh remained silent, her eyes darting between the others as if conducting her own investigation. After dinner, Poirot excused himself to the promenade deck, seeking the cool night air. The ship had left port hours ago, and the sea stretched endlessly before him, its surface a mirror of stars. He leaned against the railing, his mind turning over the evening's observations. Quelque chose ne va pas, he murmured. Something was wrong, though he could not yet name it. The passengers, the crew, even the ship itself seemed to hum with secrets. A soft footstep broke his reverie. Clara Beaumont appeared, her shawl slipping from her shoulders. Monsieur Poirot, she said, her voice low. I hope I'm not disturbing you. Not at all, mademoiselle. The night is made for reflection, is it not? She hesitated, her fingers twisting the sapphire necklace. I feel uneasy. This ship, these people, it's as if we're all playing parts in a play we don't understand. Poirot's eyes gleamed. A most astute observation. Tell me, mademoiselle, what role do you play? Her laugh was brittle. The devoted fiancé, I suppose, but Victor. She trailed off, her eyes darting to the shadows. He's not what he seems. Before Poirot could press her, a shout rang out from the deck below. Man overboard. The cry was sharp, panicked. Passengers rushed to the railings, their faces pale in the moonlight. Poirot followed, his heart quickening. The crew scrambled, searchlights cutting through the darkness, but the sea was empty, swallowing any trace of the incident. Captain Whitaker appeared, his face grim. "False alarm," he announced, though his voice lacked conviction. "A mistake. Please return to your cabins." Poirot lingered, his gaze fixed on the captain. The man's hands trembled and his eyes avoided Poirot's. "Mon ami," Poirot said softly. "A mistake, you say? Or a warning?" Whitaker flinched but said nothing, hurrying away. Poirot returned to his suite, his mind ablaze. The Aurora was no ordinary ship, and this voyage was no ordinary journey. As he prepared for bed, he placed his notebook on the desk, jotting down names: Clara, Victor, Dr. Marsh, Dubois, Grayson, Whitaker. Beside each, he wrote a single word: motive. Sleep did not come easily. The ship's gentle rocking was soothing, but Poirot's thoughts were anything but calm. He sensed the threads of a mystery weaving together, a tapestry of deceit and danger. Tomorrow he would begin to unravel it, using the method and order that had never failed him. For now, he closed his eyes, the distant hum of the ship's engines, lulling him into a restless slumber. The next morning, Poirot rose early, his routine as precise as ever. He shaved, dressed, and breakfasted in the dining salon, where the mood was subdued. News of the previous night's false alarm had spread, and whispers of unease rippled through the passengers. Poirot sipped his coffee, observing. Clara sat alone, her eyes red-rimmed. Victor was nowhere to be seen. Dr. Marsh read a medical journal, her expression unreadable. Grayson, nursing a hangover, complained loudly about the coffee's quality. Poirot approached Clara, offering a polite bow. "Mademoiselle, may I join you?" She nodded, her smile faint. "Of course, Monsieur Poirot. I could use the company," he sat, folding his napkin with care. "Last night you spoke of unease. Has something new occurred?" Chapter 2. Whispers in the Dining Salon. The morning sun cast a golden sheen over the SS Aurora as it sliced through the Mediterranean, its engines humming with a steady rhythm that belied the turmoil brewing among its passengers. Hercule Poirot, impeccably dressed in a light gray suit, his mustache gleaming with fresh wax, descended the grand staircase to the dining salon. The events of the previous night, the murder of Sir Reginald Hargrove, the locked cabin, the cryptic clues, had set his little gray cells alight. He knew that today, in the seemingly mundane interactions of breakfast, he would uncover the first threads of the killer's identity. The dining salon was a spectacle of opulence, its walls adorned with gilded mirrors and its chandeliers sparkling like constellations. Long tables draped in crisp white linen groaned under silver platters of croissants, smoked salmon, and exotic fruits. Yet the atmosphere was anything but festive. Passengers spoke in hushed tones, their eyes darting to the empty chair at the head table where Sir Reginald should have sat. The air was thick with suspicion, and Poirot, ever the observer, felt it like a pulse beneath the surface. He took a seat at a small table near the center, strategically chosen to afford a view of the room. A waiter, young and nervous, poured his coffee with a trembling hand. "Merci," Poirot said, his voice calm but probing. "Tell me, mon ami, how is the mood among the crew this morning?" The waiter glanced around before leaning closer. "Everyone's on edge, sir. Sir Reginald was, well, not much liked, but murder, it's shaken us all." Poirot nodded, filing away the waiter's candor. "And you, did you see anything unusual last night? Perhaps near Sir Reginald's cabin?" The waiter shook his head, his eyes wide. "No, sir. I was serving in the lounge till late. But Jenkins, the head steward, he was up there. You might ask him." "Bien," Poirot said, dismissing the boy with a nod. Jenkins, the nervous steward from yesterday, was already on his list. The man's evasive demeanor had not escaped Poirot's notice. He sipped his coffee. Poirot's gaze swept the room. Clara Beaumont entered, her emerald eyes shadowed with fatigue. She wore a simple cream dress, but the sapphire necklace still gleamed at her throat, a beacon of her unease. She hesitated at the entrance, scanning the room, then made her way to a table where Victor Langston sat, his dark hair slicked back, his expression unreadable. The couple exchanged a few words, their body language stiff before Clara sat, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. At another table, Dr. Evelyn Marsh ate alone, her spectacles glinting as she read a newspaper. Her composure was almost unnerving, as if the murder were a mere inconvenience. Harold Grayson, the boisterous former business partner, was absent, likely nursing his hangover. Captain Whitaker, however, was present, standing near the buffet, his ruddy face pale as he spoke quietly, with a crew member. His eyes met Poirot's briefly, then darted away. The mysterious Mr. Dubois entered last, his fedora pulled low. He chose a corner table far from the others and ordered only a glass of water. Poirot noted the man's economy of movement, the way his fingers tapped the table in a rhythm that suggested impatience or fear. Poirot's breakfast arrived, a perfectly poached egg, a slice of toast, and a small pot of marmalade. He ate slowly, his attention divided between his plate and the room. It was then that he overheard the first whisper, a fragment of conversation from Clara and Victor's table, carried by the acoustics of the salon. "You were gone all night." "Victor," Clara said, her voice low but sharp. "Don't lie to me again." Victor's reply was softer, almost inaudible. "You're imagining things, Clara. I was in the smoking lounge, like I said." Poirot's lips twitched. The smoking lounge again, a convenient alibi, but one easily checked. He made a mental note to speak with the lounge's steward. Another whisper caught his ear, this time from a table of minor passengers, a group of wealthy tourists. "They say the door was locked," one woman said, her voice trembling. "How could anyone get in? It's unnatural." Her companion, an older man with a monocle, scoffed. "Nonsense, Hargrove had enemies. Someone found a way." Poirot's interest sharpened. The locked cabin was indeed the heart of the mystery. A door locked from the inside, a key left on the desk, and no sign of forced entry. It was a puzzle worthy of his intellect, and he relished the challenge. As he finished his meal, Captain Whitaker approached, his posture stiff. "Monsieur Poirot, a word?" "Mais oui, Captain, please sit." Whitaker lowered himself into the chair, his hands clasped tightly. "The passengers are restless. They're demanding answers. I've told them you're investigating, but, well, we need results." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Results, Captain, come from method and order. Tell me, have you questioned the crew about last night's man overboard incident?" Whitaker's face flushed. "It was a mistake, as I said. A deckhand saw a shadow, nothing more." "And this deckhand," Poirot pressed, "he is reliable?" "Jenkins again," Whitaker admitted. "He's young, prone to nerves. Probably. Imagined it." Poirot's smile was thin. "Jenkins, encore. A most interesting coincidence. I will speak with him myself." Whitaker nodded, rising. "I'll arrange it, and be discreet, Poirot. This ship's reputation is at stake." "Discretion," Poirot said, "is my second nature." As Whitaker departed, Poirot's gaze returned to Clara and Victor. Their conversation had grown heated, though they kept their voices low. Clara's hand gripped her coffee cup so tightly her knuckles whitened. Victor leaned forward, his expression intense, almost menacing. Poirot strained to hear, catching only fragments. "The necklace, and don't be a fool, Clara." The necklace again. Poirot's mind flashed to the sapphire pendant, its weight on Clara's throat, her nervous fingers touching it constantly. Was it merely a lover's gift, as she claimed, or something more? A bribe, perhaps, or a symbol of a debt? He rose, intending to approach them, but was intercepted by Dr. Marsh. "Monsieur Poirot," she said, her voice crisp. "I'd like a word." "Madame, I am at your service." She led him to a quiet corner, her eyes scanning the room. "I couldn't help overhearing your talk with the captain. You're looking into the locked cabin, aren't you?" Poirot inclined his head. "It is a detail of some importance, yes." She adjusted her spectacles. As a physician, I've seen my share of locked room cases. Suicides, mostly. But this wasn't suicide. The angle of the wound suggests a right-handed assailant, striking from above. Hargrove was sitting at his desk when he was killed. Poirot's interest deepened. And the time of death? Between midnight and 2 a.m., based on rigor mortis. I examined him thoroughly. Merci, madame. Your expertise is most valuable. Tell me, did you know Sir Reginald well? Her expression tightened. Only as a patient, he was difficult, demanding. But I had no reason to wish him harm. Poirot nodded, sensing a half-truth. And last night, where were you at the time of the murder? In my cabin reading, I retired early. Her tone was firm, but her eyes flickered, a tell Poirot did not miss. As Dr. Marsh returned to her table, Poirot made his way to Clara and Victor. Clara looked up, startled, as he approached. Monsieur Poirot, she said, forcing a smile. Good morning. Mademoiselle, monsieur, Poirot said, bowing slightly. I trust you slept well. Victor's jaw tightened. As well as can be expected given the circumstances. Poirot's eyes fell on Clara's necklace. A most exquisite piece, mademoiselle. May I inquire as to its origin? Clara's hand flew to the sapphire. It was a gift from Victor, a token of our engagement. Victor's smile was strained. A family heirloom, nothing more. Poirot's gaze lingered on Victor, noting the tension in his shoulders. Monsieur Langston, I understand you were in the smoking lounge last night. Perhaps you saw something unusual. Victor's eyes narrowed. Nothing but cigars and brandy. Why do you ask? Merely curiosity, Poirot said lightly. In a murder case, every detail matters. As he excused himself, Poirot felt Victor's gaze burning into his back. The man was hiding something, and Clara's fear was palpable. The necklace, the argument, the smoking lounge alibi, all were pieces of a puzzle he was only beginning to assemble. He sought out Jenkins next, finding the head steward in the crew quarters, a cramped space below deck. Jenkins was polishing, silverware, his hands shaking. Monsieur Poirot, he said, his voice high. The captain said you wanted to see me? Oui, Monsieur Jenkins. Tell me about last night. You reported a man overboard, yet it was a mistake. What did you see? Jenkins swallowed. It was dark, sir. I was on the lower deck, checking the lifeboats. I thought I saw someone fall, but when the searchlights came on, there was nothing. I must have been wrong. Poirot's eyes bored into him. And earlier, when you delivered brandy to Sir Reginald, did you notice anything unusual? Jenkins shook his head vigorously. No, sir, he was at his desk writing. I left the bottle and locked the door like always. Locked, Poirot repeated. And the key? In my pocket, sir. I gave it to the captain this morning, after we found the body. Poirot's smile was encouraging. Merci, Jenkins. You have been most helpful. As he left the crew quarters, Poirot's mind raced. Jenkins was lying, or at least omitting something. The man overboard incident, the locked door, the key, all pointed to a carefully staged crime. But why, and by whom? Back in the dining salon, the passengers had dispersed, leaving only a few stragglers. Poirot lingered, his eyes drawn to a discarded newspaper on Dr. Marsh's table. The headline mentioned a smuggling ring in Marseille, recently uncovered by Chapter 3, The Midnight Scream. The SS Aurora sailed smoothly through the inky Mediterranean night, its lights casting a golden halo over the dark waves. The ship's opulence, so dazzling by day, took on an eerie quality under the moon's pale gaze, as if the vessel itself were holding its breath. Hercule Poirot, dressed in a silk dressing gown, sat at the mahogany desk in his suite on the promenade deck, his notebook open before him. The sapphire from the cargo hold rested in a velvet pouch beside his pen, its deep blue facets catching the lamplight. His little gray cells were alight, piecing together the fragments of the mystery. Sir Reginald Hargrove's murder, the locked cabin, Clara Beaumont's nervous whispers, Victor Langston's dubious alibi, and the smuggling operation hinted at by the hidden gem. The clock on the wall ticked toward midnight, its rhythm steady against the distant hum of the ship's engines. Poirot's pen moved methodically, sketching a diagram of suspects and clues. At the center was Sir Reginald, a man whose wealth and secrets had drawn a noose around his neck. Around him orbited Clara, Victor, Dr. Evelyn Marsh, Mr. Dubois, Harold, Grayson, and Captain Whitaker, each a piece in a puzzle that refused to cohere. The sapphire, the forged manifest, the threatening letter found in Hargrove's safe, all pointed to a conspiracy, but the motive remained elusive. Was it greed? Revenge? Or something deeper hidden in the shadows of the aurora? A sudden, piercing scream shattered the silence, jolting Poirot from his thoughts. It came from the deck above, sharp and desperate, cutting through the night like a blade. He rose, slipping the sapphire pouch into his pocket and seizing his cane, its silver handle cool against his palm. The scream had been a woman's, he was certain, and it carried a note of terror that set his nerves on edge. Mon Dieu, he murmured. The drama escalates. He stepped into the corridor, the plush carpet muffling his footsteps. The ship was quiet, save for the faint creak of wood and the distant murmur of the sea. The scream had not been repeated, but its echo lingered in Poirot's mind, urging him upward. He ascended the staircase to the upper deck, his movements swift yet precise, his eyes scanning the shadows for any sign of movement. The air was cool, tinged with salt, and the stars above were a glittering canopy, indifferent to the human turmoil below. At the top of the stairs, Poirot paused, listening. A low sob came from the direction of the starboard railing, where the lifeboats were moored. He moved toward it, his cane tapping softly against the polished deck. There, in the dim glow of a deck lamp, stood Clara Beaumont, her face pale, her hands clutching the railing as if it were her only anchor. Her dress, a pale blue chiffon, fluttered in the breeze, and her sapphire necklace gleamed like a beacon of distress. Mademoiselle Beaumont, Poirot said gently, approaching with care. What has happened? I heard a scream. Clara turned, her eyes wide with fear. Monsieur Poirot, oh, thank God it's you. Her voice trembled and she clutched her shawl tighter. I saw something, someone, near the lifeboats. They were dragging something heavy like a body. Poirot's eyebrows rose, but his voice remained calm. A body, you say? Précisément, what did you see? She swallowed, her gaze darting to the shadows. It was dark, but I saw a figure, a man, I think, pulling a large sack toward the lifeboats. I was walking, trying to clear my head after an argument with Victor. When I got closer, the figure saw me and ran. That's when I screamed. Poirot's eyes narrowed. And this sack, mademoiselle, did you see what was inside? No, she admitted, her voice barely a whisper. But it was heavy, and it moved as if something inside was struggling. Poirot's mind raced. A body or perhaps another clue to the smuggling operation. Mademoiselle, show me where this occurred. Clara led him to a row of lifeboats, their canvas covers taut against the night wind. The deck was empty now, the silence oppressive. Poirot examined the area, his eyes catching a faint scuff mark on the wood, as if something had been dragged. Near one lifeboat he found a torn piece of burlap, its coarse texture stained with something dark. Oil perhaps, or blood. He pocketed it, his expression unreadable. Mademoiselle, you must return to your cabin, he said firmly. This ship is no place for midnight strolls. Tell no one of this, not even Monsieur Langston. Clara nodded, her face pale. But Victor, he'll want to know where I've been. Say you were unwell, Poirot instructed, and lock your door tonight. Trust in Hercule Poirot. As Clara hurried away, Poirot remained by the lifeboats, his mind churning. The scream, the sack, the fleeing figure. It was no coincidence, coming so soon after Hargrove's murder. The killer was still active, perhaps disposing of evidence or silencing a witness. He resolved to inspect the lifeboats at first light, but for now, he needed to alert Captain Whitaker. He found the captain in his quarters, a cramped but orderly space lined with nautical charts. Whitaker was pacing, a glass of brandy in his hand, his face haggard. "Monsieur Poirot," he said, startled. "What brings you here at this hour?" "A scream, Captain," Poirot said, his voice sharp. "Heard by myself and others, I am sure. A passenger saw a figure near the lifeboats, dragging a heavy sack. I require your crew to search the deck immediately." Whitaker's face paled. "A sack? Good Lord, not another." He trailed off, setting the glass down with a clatter. "I'll wake the crew." "But Poirot, this is madness. 2 incidents. In one night?" "Nah, Captain," Poirot corrected. "1 incident continued. The murder of Sir Reginald is the root, and this is a branch. We must act swiftly." Whitaker nodded, barking orders into a telephone. Within minutes, a dozen crewmen were scouring the upper deck, their lanterns casting flickering shadows. Poirot joined them, his eyes scanning every corner. The lifeboats were undisturbed, their covers intact, but the scuff mark and the burlap fragment remained, silent witnesses to Clara's story. As the search continued, passengers began to gather, drawn by the commotion. Victor Langston appeared, his dark eyes narrowing as he spotted Poirot. "What's going on?" he demanded. Clara said she heard a scream. Poirot's smile was serene. "Monsieur Langston, your fiancée is safe. A minor disturbance, nothing more. Perhaps you can confirm your whereabouts this evening." Victor's jaw tightened. "I was in the card room playing poker with Grayson and some others. Ask them if you don't believe me." "Merci," Poirot said, his tone polite but probing. "I will." The search yielded nothing. No sack, no body, no trace of the mysterious figure. Yet Poirot was undeterred. The absence of evidence was, itself, a clue, suggesting the killer's cunning. He dismissed the crew, instructing Whitaker to double the night watch, and returned to his suite, his mind ablaze. Seated at his desk, Poirot added the night's events to his notebook. Midnight. Scream. Clara Beaumont witnesses figure with sack near lifeboats. Burlap fragment found. Victor claims cardroom alibi. No body recovered. Beside Victor's name, he wrote, "Lying?" The man's quick appearance, his defensive tone, suggested he knew more. Then he led on. Sleep was impossible, so Poirot turned to the newspaper he'd taken from the dining salon. The article on the Marseille smuggling ring mentioned a shipment of precious gems, intercepted by authorities but incomplete. Several sapphires, described as exceptional quality, were still missing. Poirot's fingers brushed the velvet pouch in his pocket. The sapphire from the cargo hold, identical to Clara's necklace, was no coincidence. Was Hargrove smuggling gems, and had he paid the ultimate price for it? A knock at the door startled him. It was Dr. Evelyn Marsh, her spectacles glinting in the lamplight. "Monsieur Poirot," she said, her voice low. "I heard about the scream. I thought you should know. I saw someone near the lifeboats earlier, around 11. I didn't think much of it at the time, but now—" Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Madame, describe this person." Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a dark coat. I couldn't see his face. He was tampering with a lifeboat cover, then slipped away when he heard me approach. "Merci, madame. And you were there because I couldn't sleep," she said curtly. "I often walk the deck at night. It clears my head." Poirot nodded, sensing another half-truth. "You have been most helpful. Please return to your cabin and lock the door." As Dr. Marsh left, Poirot added her account to his notebook. 2 witnesses, 2 sightings near the lifeboats, yet no evidence. The killer was meticulous, but even the most careful criminal left traces. Poirot's mind turned to the burlap fragment. If it was bloodstained as he suspected, it could point to a second victim, or a staged distraction. At dawn, Poirot returned to the lifeboats, the deck now bathed in soft pink light. The crew had found nothing, but Poirot's eyes caught a detail they'd missed. A faint smear of oil on the railing, matching the stain on the burlap. He scraped a sample into a handkerchief, knowing it might hold chemical clues. The lifeboat. Covers were secure, but one seemed slightly askew, as if hastily retied. He made a note to have it inspected later. Back in the dining salon for breakfast, the mood was grim. Passengers whispered about the scream, some claiming it was a ghost, others insisting the ship was cursed. Clara sat with Victor, her eyes downcast, while he spoke animatedly, as if to distract her. Dr. Marsh read her newspaper, her expression unreadable. Harold Grayson, red-faced and disheveled, complained loudly about the noise keeping him awake. Mr. Dubois was absent, a fact Poirot noted. With interest, Captain Whitaker approached, his face drawn. Nothing. Chapter 4. The Locked Cabin Puzzle. The SS Aurora glided through the Mediterranean, its white hull a beacon against the endless blue. But within its opulent decks, a storm of suspicion brewed. Hercule Poirot, his suit as immaculate as ever, stood in the doorway of Sir Reginald Hargrove's private cabin, the scene of the brutal murder that had shaken the ship. The morning light streamed through the porthole, casting a harsh glow on the blood-stained Persian rug and the desk where Sir Reginald's body had been found, a dagger plunged into his chest. The locked door, the key on the desk, the absence of any struggle. These were the elements of a puzzle that had seized Poirot's imagination, and he was determined to solve it. The cabin, a testament to Hargrove's wealth, was a study in extravagance. Mahogany paneling lined the walls, adorned with oil paintings of clipper ships in stormy seas. A crystal decanter, half filled with brandy, sat on a sideboard, its stopper glinting. The desk, where Hargrove had been sitting when struck, was cluttered with papers, shipping manifests, personal letters, and a leather-bound ledger. The safe, discovered during Poirot's initial inspection, stood open, its contents a threatening letter and a forged manifest, now in Poirot's possession. Yet it was the locked door that dominated his thoughts, a riddle that defied logic. Poirot closed the door behind him, ensuring privacy. The crew had been instructed to keep passengers away, and Captain Whitaker had posted a guard outside, though the man's nervous fidgeting suggested he was ill-suited to the task. Poirot's eyes swept the room, cataloging every detail with the precision of a watchmaker. The lock on the door was a standard Yale, sturdy but not impregnable. The key, still on the desk, was unremarkable, its brass surface free of scratches or tampering. The windows were sealed, the porthole too small for a man to pass through. Mon Dieu, Poirot murmured. A locked room, yet a murder. How is it done? He began his examination at the door, running his gloved fingers along the frame. No signs of forced entry, no splinters, no dents. He inserted the key, turning it smoothly. The lock clicked with satisfying precision. Confirming it, functioned perfectly. Eh bien, he said, the door was locked as they say, but by whom? Next he moved to the desk where Sir Reginald had been found slumped, the dagger's handle protruding from his chest. The chair was slightly askew, as if Hargrove had shifted at the last moment, perhaps sensing his attacker. Poirot knelt, examining the rug. The blood stain, now darkened to a rusty brown, formed an irregular pool, suggesting Hargrove had fallen forward after the blow. A single drop, separate from the main stain, caught Poirot's eye, near the desk's edge. Curious, he muttered, scraping it into a small envelope. A stray drop could indicate the killer's movement, or a second wound. The dagger itself had been removed by Dr. Evelyn Marsh during her examination, but Poirot had seen it, a sleek, double-edged blade, likely from the ship's collection of ornamental weapons displayed in the Grand Salon. Its presence suggested premeditation, as such a weapon was not carried casually. Poirot made a mental note to check the display case later. He turned to the papers on the desk, sifting through them with care. The ledger detailed Hargrove's business transactions, many involving ports in Marseille, Naples, and Alexandria. Several entries were circled in red ink with cryptic annotations. Broker, delivery delayed, sapphires secured, payment due. Poirot's lips twitched. The sapphire in his pocket, found in the cargo hold, was no coincidence. Hargrove had been entangled in a smuggling operation, and these notes were a map of his illicit dealings. The threatening letter, found in the safe, was another clue. Written in a bold, slanting hand, it read, "Pay what you owe or the Aurora will be your tomb." No signature, no date, but the paper was of high quality, suggesting a person of means. Poirot held it to the light, noting a faint watermark, a crest perhaps, though too faint to discern. He tucked it into his notebook, knowing it might lead to the killer. The forged manifest, also from the safe, listed a shipment of textiles bound for Marseille, but Poirot suspected it concealed something more valuable, gems perhaps, or contraband. The manifest bore the captain's signature, a detail that deepened Poirot's suspicion of Whitaker's involvement. Had the captain been complicit or merely negligent? Poirot's attention shifted to the safe itself, hidden behind a panel in the wall. Its lock was intact, suggesting Hargrove had opened it before his death, or the killer had known the combination. The latter possibility intrigued Poirot. Few would have such access. A trusted associate, perhaps, or someone close enough to observe Hargrove's habits. He stepped back, surveying the room as a whole. The locked door, the key, the dagger, the papers, all pointed to a crime of calculation, not passion. Yet the absence of struggle puzzled him. Hargrove had been a robust man, unlikely to sit idly as a killer approached. Unless, Poirot mused, he knew his attacker and trusted them. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. It was Captain Whitaker, his face pale. "Monsieur Poirot, any progress? The passengers are growing restless." Poirot gestured to the desk. "Monsieur le Capitaine, this room is a treasure trove of clues, but the lock, it is the key, if you will pardon the pun. Tell me, who had access to this cabin?" "Only Sir Reginald and Jenkins, the head steward," Whitaker said. "The crew's master key doesn't work here. It's a special lock installed by Hargrove himself." "And Jenkins," Poirot pressed. "He is trustworthy?" Whitaker hesitated. "He's young, nervous, but loyal. He's been with the line for years." "Loyal," Poirot repeated, his tone skeptical. Yet he reported a man overboard that never was, and saw nothing near the lifeboats last night. "Most curious." Whitaker flushed. "He's shaken, that's all. This murder has us all on edge." Poirot nodded, dismissing the captain. "Merci. I will need to speak with Jenkins again, and with others. Arrange it, if you please." As Whitaker left, Poirot returned to the lock, his mind racing. A special lock accessible only to Hargrove and Jenkins, yet the key remained inside. Had the killer entered with Hargrove's consent, then locked the door after the deed? Or was there another way in, a secret passage or a trick? He examined the walls, tapping the paneling for hollows. Nothing. The floor, too, was solid, its planks tightly fitted. The porthole, though small, drew his attention. He opened it, peering out. The sea sparkled below, but the drop was sheer, the hull smooth. "Impossible," he murmured, closing it. Yet his mind lingered on the porthole, a nagging doubt forming. Leaving the cabin, Poirot sought out Jenkins, finding him in the crew mess, polishing silver with trembling hands. "Monsieur Jenkins," Poirot said, his voice gentle but firm, "we must speak of Sir Reginald's cabin. You delivered brandy at midnight, oui? Describe the scene." Jenkins swallowed, his eyes darting. "He was at his desk, sir, writing. Looked tired, but normal. I left the bottle and locked the door like always." "And the key?" Poirot asked. "In my pocket, sir. I gave it to the captain after we found him." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "And you saw no one else? Heard nothing unusual?" "No, sir," Jenkins said too quickly. It was quiet. Poirot leaned closer, his voice soft but piercing. "Monsieur, the truth is a delicate thing, easily bruised by lies. If you saw something, tell me now." Jenkins paled, his hands shaking. I heard footsteps, sir, after I left, near the cabin, but when I looked, no one was there." "Footsteps," Poirot repeated, his mind seizing the detail. "Merci, Jenkins. You may go." As the steward fled, Poirot added the footsteps to his notebook. A second person, perhaps the killer, lurking near the cabin. But how had they entered, and how had they left? His next stop was the grand salon where the ornamental daggers were displayed in a glass case. One slot was empty, confirming his suspicion that the murder weapon came from here. The case was locked, but the mechanism was simple, easily picked by someone with skill. Poirot questioned the salon's steward, who swore the case had been intact the previous evening. Mon Dieu, Poirot muttered. Another lock, another mystery. By midday, Poirot had interviewed several passengers, each adding a fragment to the puzzle. Clara Beaumont, pale and nervous, admitted to arguing with Victor again, this time about his late-night absences. "He's hiding something," she said, her fingers twisting the sapphire necklace. "I'm afraid, Monsieur Poirot." Victor, when questioned, was defiant. "I was in the card room until 11, then in my cabin," he said, his eyes cold. "Clara's imagining things." Dr. Evelyn Marsh, ever composed, offered a clinical perspective. "The dagger was thrust with force," she said. "The killer was strong, likely male, though a determined woman could manage it." Harold Grayson, hungover and belligerent, scoffed at Poirot's questions. "Hargrove had it coming," he said. "He cheated me out of millions. But I didn't kill him. I was too drunk to hold a knife." Mr. Dubois, elusive as ever, claimed to have been asleep during the murder. "I keep to myself, Monsieur Poirot," he said, his accent betraying a trace of something non-French. "I saw nothing." Back in his suite, Poirot spread his clues. On the desk, the sapphire, the burlap fragment, the oil sample, the threatening letter, the forged manifest. The locked cabin remained the heart of the mystery, its solution tantalizingly close. He sketched a diagram of the cabin, marking the door, the desk, the porthole. "Comment," he murmured. "How does one enter and leave a locked room?" A sudden thought struck him. The porthole, though small, might... Chapter 5. Suspects on the sun deck. The Mediterranean sun blazed overhead, casting sharp shadows across the polished teak of the SS Aurora's sun deck. The ship, now 2 days into its journey, sailed toward Marseille, its engines a steady hum, beneath the chatter of passengers lounging in wicker chairs, sipping iced drinks under striped umbrellas. The opulence of the scene, glittering jewels, silk dresses, and the clink of crystal glasses, belied the undercurrent of fear that had gripped the vessel since Sir Reginald Hargrove's murder. Hercule Poirot, immaculate in a cream linen suit, his mustache perfectly symmetrical, stood at the railing, his keen eyes scanning the crowd. The locked cabin, the sapphire, Clara's midnight scream, and the web of secrets aboard the Aurora had sharpened his senses. Today he would observe the suspects in their natural habitat, teasing out truths hidden in their casual gestures and unguarded words. The sun deck was a microcosm of the ship's elite, a stage where alliances and animosities played out under the guise of leisure. Poirot's notebook, tucked in his pocket alongside the velvet pouch containing the smuggled sapphire, held a growing list of suspects. Clara Beaumont, the nervous heiress with a questionable necklace. Victor Langston, her secretive fiancé with a crumbling alibi. Dr. Evelyn Marsh, the sharp-eyed physician with a hidden past. Mr. Dubois, the elusive Parisian whose accent betrayed him. Harold Grayson, the drunken former partner with a grudge. And Captain Whitaker, whose forged manifest suggested complicity. Each Poirot knew held a piece of the puzzle, and the sun deck offered a perfect vantage point to study them. He began his rounds, moving with the grace of a cat among the lounging passengers. Clara sat near the pool, her auburn hair catching the light, her sapphire necklace a bold statement against her white sundress. She was reading a novel, but her eyes flicked nervously toward Victor, who stood at the bar ordering a gin and tonic. Victor's posture was tense, his dark eyes scanning the deck as if expecting an ambush. Poirot noted the distance between them, physical and emotional, a rift widened by the murder and Clara's suspicions. Approaching Clara, Poirot offered a polite bow. "Mademoiselle Beaumont, may I join you? The sun is most invigorating, is it not?" Clara looked up, her smile forced. Of course, Monsieur Poirot. It's a beautiful day, despite everything. He sat folding his hands neatly. Oui. The beauty of the sea is a balm, yet it cannot erase the shadow of tragedy. Tell me, mademoiselle, how do you fare after last night's disturbance? Her fingers tightened on her book. I'm still shaken. That scream, the figure by the lifeboats, I can't stop thinking about it. Victor says I'm imagining things, but I know what I saw. Poirot's eyes gleamed. And Monsieur Langston, he was not with you during this sighting? No, she said, her voice low. He was in the card room, or so he claims. I don't know what to believe anymore. Poirot patted her hand gently. Mademoiselle, trust in Hercule Poirot. The truth, it reveals itself to those who seek it with method. Your necklace, for instance, it is a clue, non? Clara's hand flew to the sapphire. You keep asking about it, why? Because, Poirot said softly, it may be more than a gift. Be cautious, mademoiselle. Keep it close, and speak of it to no one. As he rose, Victor approached, his expression guarded. Poirot, he said curtly, interrogating my fiancé again? Monsieur Langston, Poirot replied, his tone serene. I merely offer comfort to a lady in distress. Perhaps you can assist me. Your whereabouts last night, during the scream. Can you confirm them? Victor's jaw tightened. I told you I was in the card room until 11, then my cabin. Ask Grayson, he was there. Bien, Poirot said, his smile unreadable. I shall. He moved toward the bar where Harold Grayson lounged, a whiskey in hand despite the early hour. Grayson's ruddy face was flushed, his eyes bloodshot. Monsieur Grayson, Poirot said. A word, if you please. Grayson grunted, gesturing to a chair. What now, Poirot? Another inquisition? Merely a clarification, Poirot said, sitting. Monsieur Langston claims he was with you in the card room until 11 last night. Is this true? Grayson took a swig, his laugh coarse. Victor? Yeah, he was there, losing badly. Left in a huff around 10:30, maybe 11. Said he had business to attend to. Poirot's eyebrows rose. Business at such an hour? Did he say what? Nah, Grayson said, shrugging. He's always been cagey, that one. Probably off to grovel to Hargrove before the old man got himself stabbed. Merci, Poirot said, filing away the discrepancy. Victor's alibi was unraveling. 11 was too early to account for his absence during the midnight scream. Next, Poirot sought Dr. Evelyn Marsh, who sat under an umbrella, scribbling in a notebook. Her spectacles glinted as she looked up. Monsieur Poirot, she said, her voice crisp. You're making the rounds, I see. Madame, Poirot said, bowing. The sun deck is a place of revelation. May I ask, what do you write so diligently? Observations, she said, closing the notebook. Medical notes, nothing more. This ship is a study in human behavior under stress. Indeed, Poirot said. And your observations of Sir Reginald, did they include his enemies? Dr. Marsh's lips thinned. He was a difficult man, arrogant, secretive. I treated him for insomnia, as I told you, but he hinted at troubles. Business deals gone sour, threats from rivals. He never named names. And last night, Poirot pressed, you saw a figure near the lifeboats. Have you recalled anything more? She hesitated, her eyes flickering. Only that he moved quickly, like someone used to the ship. A crewman, perhaps, or someone disguised as one. Poirot nodded, adding her detail to his mental ledger. Merci, madame. Your clarity is most helpful. His final target was Mr. Dubois, who lounged alone near the stern, his fedora shielding his face. Poirot approached, his cane tapping the deck. Monsieur Dubois, he said, a moment of your time? Dubois looked up, his eyes wary. What do you want, Poirot? To understand, Poirot said, sitting uninvited. You are a man who sees much, yet says little. Tell me, what have you observed on this ship? Dubois' smile was thin. I observe people playing roles. Lovers, businessmen, doctors, all hiding something. Hargrove was no different. He played the king. But kings fall. Poirot's gaze sharpened. "And you, monsieur? What role do you play?" "A traveler," Dubois said, his accent slipping slightly, revealing a trace of Eastern Europe. "Nothing more." "Eh bien," Poirot said, rising. "But travelers too have secrets." As he walked away, Poirot felt Dubois' eyes on him. The man's evasiveness was a red flag, his accent a clue to a hidden identity. Was he the broker Clara had overheard, the scarred man from the cargo hold? The sun deck buzzed with activity, but Poirot's focus was on the suspects' interactions. Clara and Victor argued quietly by the pool, their voices low but tense. Dr. Marsh watched them, her pen pausing over her notebook. Grayson, now joined by minor passengers, laughed too loudly, drawing glares. Captain Whitaker appeared briefly, conferring with a crewman before retreating below deck. The air was thick with unspoken accusations, and Poirot sensed the killer was among them, watching his every move. He returned to his suite, spreading his clues on the desk. The sapphire, the burlap fragment, the oil sample, the threatening letter, the forged manifest. The locked cabin remained the heart of the mystery, but the sun deck had revealed new threads. Victor's broken alibi, Dr. Marsh's keen observations, Dubois' secrecy, Grayson's bitterness, and Whitaker's nervousness. The broker loomed large, a shadow connecting the sapphires to Hargrove's death. Poirot's next move was to revisit the lifeboats, where Clara's scream had originated. Under the midday sun, the deck was crowded, but he slipped away to the starboard side, where the canvas covers gleamed white. The scuff mark and oil smear were still there, untouched by the crew's search. He examined the lifeboat covers, noting one with a slightly loose knot, as if tampered with. He untied it, peering inside. Nothing. No sack, no body, but a faint smell of oil lingered, matching the sample in his handkerchief. "Curieux," Poirot murmured. The lifeboat was a dead end, but the oil was a link to the burlap fragment. He resolved to have it analyzed, though the ship's limited resources would make that difficult. Back on the sun deck, Poirot approached the bar, where Carter, the cardroom steward, was serving drinks. "Monsieur Carter," Poirot said, "you confirmed Monsieur Langston's presence in the cardroom until 11. Did he seem agitated?" Carter nodded, wiping a glass. "Aye, sir. He was losing at poker, got snappy with Grayson. Left in a hurry, muttering about a meeting." "A meeting?" Poirot repeated. "With whom?" "Didn't say, sir. But he looked like a man with trouble on his mind." Poirot thanked him, his suspicions deepening. Victor's business at 11, followed by Clara's sighting of the scarred man, suggested a rendezvous gone wrong. Was Victor the broker or merely a pawn? As the afternoon waned, Poirot interviewed minor passengers, gleaning scraps of gossip. The retired diplomat mentioned Hargrove's ties to a Marseille syndicate, hinting at a debt unpaid. The widowed countess spoke of Clara's necklace, calling it gaudy and out of place. The young heiress, blushing, admitted to seeing Victor near the cargo hold 2 nights ago, arguing with a crewman. Each detail tightened the net around Victor, but Poirot knew better than to fixate on one suspect. At dinner, the dining salon was a study in tension. Clara sat with Victor, her eyes avoiding his. Dr. Marsh dined alone, her notebook open. Grayson, drunk as ever, mad. Chapter 6. The Missing Jewel Clue. The SS Aurora sailed steadily through the Mediterranean, its decks bathed in the soft glow of dawn as the ship cut through glassy waters toward Marseille. The air was crisp, carrying the faint tang of salt, but the serenity of the sea was a stark contrast to the turmoil brewing among the passengers. Hercule Poirot, his suit a pristine shade of dove gray, stood in his suite on the promenade deck, his notebook open before him. The sapphire from the cargo hold, the burlap fragment, the oil smear, and the threatening letter lay on his desk, each a silent witness to the murder of Sir Reginald Hargrove. Yet it was the locked cabin and Clara Beaumont's midnight scream that dominated his thoughts, threads in a tapestry of deceit that he was determined to unravel. Today, a new clue would emerge, one that would tighten the net around the killer. Poirot's morning began with a visit to the Grand Salon, where breakfast was served amid whispers of fear and suspicion. The passengers, though dressed in their finest, wore strained expressions, their conversations muted by the weight of Hargrove's death. Clara Beaumont sat alone at a corner table, her auburn hair pinned loosely, her sapphire necklace absent, a detail that caught Poirot's eye immediately. Victor Langston was nowhere to be seen, and Dr. Evelyn Marsh, ever observant, scribbled in her notebook at a nearby table. Harold Grayson, nursing a hangover, grumbled about the coffee, while Mr. Dubois, elusive as ever, lingered near the entrance, his fedora low. Captain Whitaker moved among the tables, his ruddy face pale, his attempts at reassurance falling flat. Poirot approached Clara, his cane tapping softly on the polished floor. "Mademoiselle Beaumont," he said, bowing, "may I join you? I see you are without your necklace this morning, a choice perhaps or a misfortune." Clara's hand flew to her throat, her eyes wide. "Monsieur Poirot, it's gone. I noticed it missing this morning when I dressed. I thought I'd misplaced it, but I've searched my cabin. It's nowhere." Poirot's eyebrows rose, his mind racing. "Stolen, mademoiselle? When did you last see it?" "Last night," she said, her voice trembling. "I wore it to dinner, then locked it in my jewelry case before bed. This morning the case was open and the necklace was gone." "Mon Dieu," Poirot murmured, his tone grave. "This is no small matter. The sapphire, it is linked to the mystery of Sir Reginald's death. Tell me, was your cabin locked?" "Yes," Clara said, nodding. "I always lock it, especially after what I saw by the lifeboats." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Bien. We must search your cabin at once, and you must tell no one, not even Monsieur Langston." Clara's face paled. "Victor, he was furious when I told him it was missing. He said it was my fault, that I was careless." "Monsieur Langston's anger is most interesting," Poirot said, his voice soft but sharp. "Come, mademoiselle, let us investigate." They made their way to Clara's cabin, a luxurious suite on the same deck as Poirot's. The door was locked, as she claimed, and the key in her possession showed no signs of tampering. Inside, the cabin was tidy, its furnishings elegant but understated. A small jewelry case sat on the vanity, its lid ajar. Poirot examined it, noting the lock, a simple mechanism, easily picked. The interior was lined with velvet, empty save for a pair of pearl earrings. "Mademoiselle, you are certain the necklace was here last night?" Poirot asked, running his gloved fingers along the case's edge. "Positive," Clara said. "I locked it myself after dinner." Poirot's gaze swept the room, landing on a faint scratch on the floor near the porthole. He knelt, his eyes narrowing. The porthole was closed, but its latch was slightly loose, as if recently opened. "Curieux," he murmured, opening it to peer out. The sea sparkled below, the hull sheer, but a thin ledge ran along the ship's exterior, just wide enough for a nimble intruder. "A possibility," he said, "though a dangerous one." He turned to Clara. "Mademoiselle, I must ask, has Monsieur Langston access to your cabin?" She hesitated, her cheeks flushing. "He has a key, yes. We're engaged after all, but he was in the card room last night, wasn't he?" "So he claims," Poirot said, his tone neutral. "Merci. I will investigate further. For now, keep your door locked and say nothing of this." As Clara nodded, Poirot left, his mind churning. The missing necklace was no coincidence. It was a deliberate move, perhaps to cover the killer's tracks or to retrieve a piece of the smuggling puzzle. The sapphire in his pocket, identical to Clara's, suggested a larger cache, and its theft pointed to someone with intimate knowledge of her habits. Victor, perhaps, or the mysterious broker. Poirot's next stop was the bridge, where Captain Whitaker was reviewing charts. The captain looked up, his face drawn. "Monsieur Poirot, what now? The passengers are near panic." "A theft, Captain," Poirot said, his voice crisp. "Mademoiselle Beaumont's sapphire necklace is missing. stolen from a locked jewelry case. I require a search of the ship, discreetly. Whitaker's eyes widened. A theft, on top of a murder? This ship is cursed. No, Captain, Poirot said. Not cursed, but plagued by human greed. The necklace is linked to Sir Reginald's death. Tell me, have you noticed any crew behaving oddly? A man with a scar, perhaps? Whitaker flinched, his hands gripping. The chart. A scar? No, I don't know anyone like that, but I'll order the search. Poirot's smile was thin. Merci. And ensure Jenkins, the head steward, is questioned. His name appears too often in this affair. Leaving the bridge, Poirot sought out Jenkins, finding him in the crew mess, polishing silver with a nervous intensity. Monsieur Jenkins, Poirot said, his voice gentle but probing. A necklace has been stolen from Mademoiselle Beaumont's cabin. You have access to many cabins, oui? What do you know of this? Jenkins dropped a spoon, his face pale. Nothing. Sir, I swear I haven't been in her cabin since yesterday when I delivered towels. And last night, Poirot pressed. After the scream by the lifeboats, where were you? In the mess, sir, Jenkins said, his voice shaking. I told you I heard the scream but saw nothing. Poirot's eyes bored into him. Monsieur, your nerves betray you. If you are hiding something, it is better to tell Hercule Poirot now. Jenkins shook his head, his eyes darting to the door. I'm not hiding anything, sir, I swear. Poirot let him go, noting the steward's fear. Jenkins was either guilty or terrified of someone who was. The theft of the necklace, so soon after the midnight scream, suggested the killer was moving. Quickly, erasing evidence of their crime. By midday, Poirot returned to Sir Reginald's cabin, hoping to uncover more clues about the sapphires. The room was as he'd left it, the bloodstain a grim reminder of the murder. He re-examined the safe, finding a hidden compartment he'd missed before. Inside was a single sheet of paper, a list of names and numbers. Broker, 50,000, Langston, 20,000, Marseille, delivery 12th. Poirot's heart quickened. The 12th was tomorrow, the day the Aurora was due to dock in Marseille. The list confirmed the smuggling operation with Victor Langston and the mysterious broker at its heart. He pocketed the list, his mind racing. The necklace's theft was a desperate act, perhaps to prevent the sapphires from being traced. But who had taken it? Victor, whose alibi was shaky. The broker, whose scarred face haunted Clara's story. Or another player, yet to be revealed. Poirot's next move was to question Victor, whom he found on the sun deck, lounging with a drink, his eyes cold. Monsieur Langston, Poirot said, sitting uninvited, your fiancée's necklace is missing. A sapphire identical to one I found in the cargo hold. What do you know of this? Victor's jaw tightened, but his voice was smooth. Clara's careless, that's all. She probably lost it. As for the cargo hold, I don't know what you're talking about. No? Poirot said, his tone sharp. Yet you were seen there arguing with a man, a scarred man, perhaps the broker mentioned in Sir Reginald's papers. Victor's face paled, but he recovered quickly. You're fishing, Poirot. I was in the card room, as I told you. Check with Grayson. Monsieur Grayson says you left at 10:30, Poirot said, his eyes gleaming. Plenty of time to visit the cargo hold, or Mademoiselle Beaumont's cabin. Victor stood, his fists clenched. You're accusing me of theft? Of murder? You have no proof. Pas encore, Poirot said, his smile serene. But the truth, it does not hide forever. As Victor stormed off, Poirot made his way to Dr. Marsh, who was in the library, her notebook open. Madame, he said, a necklace has been stolen. Have you seen anything suspicious? A crewman, perhaps, or Monsieur Dubois? Dr. Marsh adjusted her spectacles. I saw Dubois near the promenade deck last night after dinner. He was speaking with a crewman, a tall man, rough-looking. I didn't see a scar, but it was dark. Poirot nodded, adding the detail to his mental ledger. And your notebook, madame. What do you record so diligently? Observations, she said curtly. People's reactions to the murder. It's enlightening. Bien, Poirot said. If you observe anything more, you will tell me, oui? She nodded, her eyes guarded. Poirot left, his suspicions of Dr. Marsh growing. Her composure was too perfect, her observations too keen. Was she merely a bystander or a player in the game? He sought out Mr. Dubois next, finding him in the smoking lounge, a cigar in hand. Monsieur Dubois, Poirot said, you are a Gao, man of mystery. Tell me, what do you know of sapphires smuggled aboard this ship? Dubois' eyes narrowed, his accent slipping. Sapphires? I'm a textile merchant, Poirot. I deal in cloth, not jewels. Vraiment? Poirot said. Yet, your name appears in whispers linked to a... Chapter 7. Tensions at the Masquerade. Ball the SS. Aurora shimmered under the Mediterranean stars, its decks aglow with the soft light of lanterns strung along the railings. The ship, now 3 days into its voyage toward Marseille, was a floating palace of luxury. But the murder of Sir Reginald Hargrove and the theft of Clara Beaumont's sapphire necklace had cast a pall over its grandeur. Tonight, the Grand Salon was transformed for a masquerade ball, a spectacle of masks and mystery meant to distract the passengers from their fears. Hercule Poirot, impeccable in a black dinner jacket, his mustache waxed to perfection, stood at the salon's entrance, his sharp eyes scanning the crowd. The locked cabin, the smuggled sapphire, Clara's midnight scream, and the web of suspects. Clara, Victor Langston, Dr. Evelyn Marsh, Mr. Dubois, Harold Grayson, and Captain Whitaker were threads in a tapestry he was determined to unravel. The ball, with its anonymity and revelry, was the perfect stage to observe the suspects' true natures. The Grand Salon was a vision of opulence, its chandeliers casting prisms of light over a polished dance floor. Tables draped in gold-trimmed, linen held silver trays of champagne flutes and delicate canapés. Passengers masked in feathers, velvet, and silk swirled in a kaleidoscope of color, their laughter tinged with unease. The orchestra played a waltz, its notes lilting yet haunting as if echoing the ship's secrets. Poirot, wearing a simple black domino mask that did little to conceal his distinctive features, moved through the crowd with the grace of a panther, his cane tapping softly against the floor. Mon Dieu, he murmured, a masquerade, where truths hide behind falsehoods, a fitting setting for a murderer. His first task was to locate Clara Beaumont, whose stolen necklace had added a new layer to the mystery. He spotted her near a marble pillar, her auburn hair swept into an elegant chignon, her face half hidden by a silver mask adorned with peacock feathers. Her gown, a deep emerald, shimmered in the light, but her posture was tense, her hands clutching a fan as if it were a shield. Victor Langston stood beside her, his lean frame clad in a tailored suit, his mask a stark white, accentuating his dark eyes. Their conversation was hushed, but Poirot's keen ears caught fragments. Careless, Clara? You don't understand? Poirot approached, bowing slightly. Mademoiselle Beaumont, Monsieur Langston, a most enchanting evening, no? May I compliment your masks? Clara's smile was strained. Thank you, Monsieur Poirot. It's a distraction, at least. Victor's eyes narrowed behind his mask. Poirot, always sniffing around. Found that necklace yet? Pas encore, Poirot said, his tone serene. But the theft, it is a clue, monsieur. Tell me, where were you after dinner last night? When the necklace vanished? Victor's jaw tightened. In my cabin, as I told you, Clara can confirm it. Clara hesitated, her fan fluttering. I was asleep, Victor. I didn't see you until morning. Poirot's lips twitched. Most interesting. Mademoiselle, may I have this dance? It will lift your spirits. Clara glanced at Victor, who nodded curtly. Poirot led her to the dance floor, his steps precise as they joined the waltz. Mademoiselle, he said softly, you are troubled. Is it only the necklace or something more? Her eyes, visible through her mask, were bright with fear. Victor's changed, Monsieur Poirot. He's secretive, angry. I think he knows who took the necklace, but he won't tell me. And that man, the scarred man I saw in the cargo hold, I'm sure he's here, watching us. Poirot's grip on her hand tightened slightly. The broker, perhaps. Be vigilant, mademoiselle, stay among others and trust in Hercule Poirot. As the dance ended, Poirot escorted Clara back to Victor, noting the man's possessive grip on her arm. Victor's alibi was crumbling and his connection to the broker, possibly the scarred man, grew more plausible. Poirot moved on, his eyes seeking Dr. Evelyn Marsh, whom he found near the orchestra, her spectacles glinting behind a crimson mask. She was speaking with Captain Whitaker, whose naval uniform was offset by a plain black mask, his ruddy face pale under the lights. Madame Marsh, Monsieur le Capitaine, Poirot said, joining them. A splendid affair, oui. Yet the shadow of murder lingers. Whitaker's hands trembled as he sipped champagne. Poirot, the passengers are terrified. This ball was meant to calm them, but it's only made things worse. Dr. Marsh's voice was crisp. People hide behind masks, but their fears betray them. I've seen it in their eyes. Guilt, suspicion, dread. Poirot's gaze sharpened. And you, madam? What do you see in Monsieur Langston's eyes? Her lips thinned. Calculation. He's playing a game, Poirot, and Clara's caught in it. Bien, Poirot said. And last night during the theft, where were you both? Whitaker flushed. In my quarters, reviewing logs alone. I was walking the deck, Dr. Marsh said, her tone even. I needed air. I saw nothing unusual. Poirot nodded, sensing half-truths. Merci. Enjoy the ball. He moved toward the bar where Harold Grayson, his face unmasked and flushed with drink, was regaling a group with tales of his lost fortune. Hargrove ruined me, he slurred, but I didn't kill him. Too much effort. Poirot joined the group, his smile polite. Monsieur Grayson, your candor is refreshing. Tell me, did you see Monsieur Langston after the card game 2 nights? Hago? Grayson squinted, his voice loud. Victor? He left early muttering about a deal. Shady type, if you ask me. Merci, Poirot said, filing away the confirmation. Victor's movements were a web of contradictions, each lie a thread leading to the truth. Mr. Dubois was harder to find, his presence a shadow among the revelers. Poirot spotted him near a curtained alcove, his fedora replaced by a velvet mask, his eyes scanning the room. Poirot approached, his cane tapping. Monsieur Dubois, you are a man who avoids the spotlight. Yet I wonder, what do you know of sapphires, stolen or smuggled? Dubois' smile was thin, his accent slipping. You're persistent, Poirot. I know nothing of jewels, only textiles. Leave me be. No, Poirot said softly. The broker is a name whispered aboard this ship. Is it yours, monsieur? Dubois' hand twitched, but he turned away, vanishing into the crowd. Poirot's suspicions deepened. Dubois was hiding something, perhaps his true identity. The ball grew livelier, the music faster, the masks a blur of color. Poirot circulated, his ears attuned to every snippet of conversation. A minor passenger, a countess in a feathered mask, whispered to her companion, "The necklace, worth a king's ransom." Another, a young heiress, giggled nervously. Victor was so angry. I saw him near Clara's cabin. Each fragment was a clue, tightening the net around the suspects. As the clock struck 11, a commotion erupted near the deck entrance. A woman's cry, sharp, panicked, cut through the music. The orchestra faltered and passengers turned, their masks hiding their expressions but not their fear. Poirot hurried toward the sound, his heart quickening. At the railing, Clara stood, her mask askew, pointing to the deck below. "It's Victor," she gasped. "He fell." Poirot leaned over the railing, his eyes scanning the lower deck. Victor Langston lay sprawled on the teak, his mask gone, his face pale under the lanterns. A crowd gathered, their murmurs rising, like a tide. Dr. Marsh pushed through, kneeling beside him. "He's alive," she called, her voice steady. "Bruised, possibly a broken arm, but he'll survive." Poirot descended the stairs, his mind racing. A fall, so soon after the necklace's theft, was no accident. He reached Victor, who groaned as Dr. Marsh examined him. "Monsieur Langston," Poirot said, "what happened?" Victor's eyes fluttered open, his voice weak. Someone pushed me. I was standing there then. A shove. Mon Dieu, Poirot murmured. Did you see who? No, Victor said, wincing. It was dark. They came from behind. Poirot's gaze swept the deck, noting the shadows cast by the lanterns. A push suggested intent, perhaps to silence Victor or to warn him. He turned to Clara, who had followed, her face pale. Mademoiselle, you were with him moments ago. Did you see anyone nearby? No, she said, her voice trembling. We were arguing. Then he walked to the railing. I turned away and then he was gone. Poirot's eyes narrowed. An argument, a fall, a missing necklace. The pieces were connecting, but the picture was still unclear. He instructed the crew to carry Victor to the infirmary, then returned to the ball where the mood had soured. Passengers whispered, their masks no longer a game but a barrier. Captain Whitaker, visibly shaken, announced the ball would continue, but the orchestra's notes felt hollow. Poirot sought out Dr. Marsh, who was washing her hands in a basin near the infirmary. Madam, he said, your quick action saved Monsieur Langston. Tell me, was his fall truly an accident? Her eyes met his, sharp behind her mask. The bruises suggest a push, not a stumble. Someone wanted him out of the way, but not dead, not yet. Bien, Poirot said. And the necklace. Have you heard anything among the passengers? Only gossip, she said. Some say it's cursed, others that it's part of Hargrove's fortune. Clara's distraught, but Victor, he's too calm, considering. Poirot nodded, adding her observations to his mental ledger. Victor's survival was a complication, but his near death was a clue. Was he a target or a decoy? He returned to the salon where Grayson was drowning his nerves in whiskey. Monsieur Grayson, Poirot said, you were near the deck entrance when Monsieur Langston fell. Did you see anything? Grayson burped, his eyes bleary. Just a crowd, Poirot. Everyone's masked, running around like fools. Victor's slippery, though. Wouldn't surprise me if he staged it. Chapter 8. The Captain's Confession. The SS Aurora sailed through a dawn that painted the Mediterranean in hues of gold and rose, its engines a steady pulse beneath the polished decks. The grandeur of the ship, its gleaming brass, its silken drapes, its crystal chandeliers could not mask the tension that gripped its passengers. The murder of Sir Reginald Hargrove, the theft of Clara Beaumont's sapphire necklace, Victor Langston's near-fatal fall, and the midnight scream by the lifeboats had woven a web of fear and suspicion. Hercule Poirot, immaculate in a charcoal suit, his mustache a perfect crescent, stood at his suite's porthole, gazing at the sea. His desk held a growing collection of clues, the smuggled sapphire, the burlap fragment, the oil smear, the threatening letter, the forged manifest, the list naming the broker, the blue thread from Clara's cabin, and the cigar butt from the masquerade ball. Each was a piece of the puzzle, but the locked cabin and the elusive broker remained the heart of the mystery. Today Poirot would press harder, and a confession would bring him closer to the truth. The morning began in the dining salon, where breakfast was a subdued affair. Passengers whispered behind their coffee cups, their eyes darting to Poirot as he entered. Clara Beaumont sat alone, her face pale, her necklace still missing. Victor Langston, his arm in a sling from his fall, was absent, recovering in the infirmary. Dr. Evelyn Marsh read her newspaper, her spectacles glinting, while Harold, Grayson, nursing a hangover, muttered complaints. Mr. Dubois, ever elusive, sipped water in a corner, his fedora low. Captain Whitaker, presiding over the meal, looked haggard, his ruddy face drawn as he avoided Poirot's gaze. Poirot took a seat near the captain, his coffee served by a nervous waiter. Monsieur le Capitaine, he said, his voice smooth but firm, we must speak. The events of last night, Monsieur Langston's fall, the stolen necklace, suggest a killer growing bold. I require your full cooperation. Whitaker's hands trembled as he set down his cup. Poirot, I'm doing all I can. The crew's searching for the necklace, but we're at sea. No one's left the ship. Précisément, Poirot said, his eyes gleaming. The killer is among us, and I believe you know more than you say. The forged manifest bearing your signature points to smuggling. Sapphires, perhaps, like the one stolen from Mademoiselle Beaumont. Tell me, Captain, what was your arrangement with Sir Reginald? Whitaker's face paled, his voice a whisper. You're accusing me of murder? No, Poirot said, but of complicity, perhaps. Speak, monsieur, or the truth will be less kind when I uncover it. Whitaker glanced around, ensuring no one was within earshot. All right, Poirot, he said, his voice low. I'll tell you, but not here. My quarters, after breakfast. Poirot nodded, his expression unreadable. Bien, I will be there. As he ate his poached egg and toast, Poirot observed the room. Clara's hands twisted in her lap, her eyes red from crying. Dr. Marsh's pen moved steadily, her notes a mystery. Grayson's loud complaints drew glares, while Dubois' silence was a presence in itself. The dining salon was a stage, and each suspect played a role, their masks slipping under Poirot's scrutiny. After breakfast, Poirot followed Whitaker to his quarters, a cramped space filled with nautical charts and a worn desk. The captain locked the door, his hands shaking. Poirot, he said, I swear I didn't kill Hargrove, but you're right about the manifest. It was forged, and I knew it. Poirot's eyebrows rose. Continue, Captain. Whitaker sank into a chair, his face ashen. Hargrove was involved in smuggling, gems mostly through Marseille. He used the Aurora to move them, hidden in cargo holds. I signed the manifests without checking, trusting him. He paid me to look the other way, a bonus, he called it. I needed the money, my wife's ill, and the bills. He trailed off, his eyes glistening. Poirot's voice was gentle but firm. And the broker. Who is he? Whitaker shook his head. I don't know his name. Hargrove dealt with him directly. A rough type, scarred face, always in the shadows. I saw him once in Marseille, meeting Hargrove at the docks. Hargrove said he was essential to the operation. Poirot's mind raced, Clara's description of the scarred man in the cargo hold flashing before him. And this broker, he said. Was he aboard the Aurora? I think so, Whitaker admitted. I saw someone like him near the cargo hold 2 nights ago before the murder. But I didn't report it. Hargrove's orders. Mon Dieu, Poirot murmured. You have withheld much, Captain. And the necklace, do you know of its theft? Whitaker shook his head. No, but if it's a sapphire, it's likely part of the shipment. Hargrove was paranoid about those gems. He kept them locked in his safe, or so he said. Poirot's eyes narrowed. The safe in his cabin, oui? Yet it was open when we found him. Tell me, Captain, who else knew of the smuggling? Only Jenkins, the head steward, Whitaker said. He delivered messages for Hargrove, sometimes to the broker, but Jenkins is loyal, he wouldn't kill. Loyalty, Poirot said, is a fragile thing under pressure. Merci, Captain. You have been most illuminating. As he left Whitaker's quarters, Poirot's mind churned. The captain's confession confirmed the smuggling ring, with Hargrove at its center and the broker as a key player. The sapphire necklace stolen from Clara was likely one of the smuggled gems, its theft a desperate act to conceal the operation. Jenkins once again was a link. His nervous demeanor, his presence at every turn, suggested he knew more than he admitted. Poirot sought out Jenkins, finding him in the crew mess, polishing brass with trembling hands. Monsieur Jenkins, Poirot said, his voice soft but piercing, you have been mentioned often in this affair. The captain tells me you delivered messages for Sir Reginald, perhaps to a man with a scar. What do you know of this broker? Jenkins dropped the brass, his face pale. I don't know any broker, sir. I just did what Sir Reginald asked, delivered notes, ran errands. I never read them, I swear. Poirot leaned closer, his eyes boring into the steward's. And the night of the murder, monsieur? You heard footsteps near Hargrove's cabin. Were they the brokers? Jenkins swallowed, his voice barely audible. I don't know, sir. It was dark and I was scared. I didn't see anyone. Bien, Poirot said, dismissing him. But the truth, it will not stay hidden forever. Jenkins' fear was palpable, and Poirot added it to his mental ledger. The steward was either complicit or terrified, and either way he was a weak link in the killer's chain. Next, Poirot visited the infirmary, where Victor Langston lay, his arm bandaged, his face bruised but defiant. Monsieur Langston, Poirot said, sitting beside the bed. Your fall was no accident. Who pushed you and why? Victor's eyes narrowed. I told you I didn't see them. It was dark, and they came from behind. Vraiment? Poirot said. Yet you were seen in the cargo hold arguing with a scarred man, the broker perhaps. And your fiancé's necklace stolen last night, does it not belong to the same shipment? Victor's face hardened. You're reaching, Poirot. I don't know any broker, and the necklace was Clara's, a gift from me. A gift, Poirot repeated, his tone skeptical. Or a piece of Sir Reginald's smuggling empire? Tell me, monsieur, what was your business with Hargrove mentioned in his ledger? Victor's jaw clenched, but he said nothing. Poirot rose, his smile serene. Silence, monsieur, is an answer in itself. Leaving the infirmary, Poirot sought Clara, finding her on the sun deck, her eyes red from crying. Mademoiselle, he said, your fiancé is evasive, and the necklace's theft is no coincidence. Tell me, what do you know of his dealings? With Sir Reginald? Clara's hands twisted in her lap. Victor was always meeting with him late at night. He said it was about investments, but I overheard them once talking about deliveries in Marseille. I thought it was just business, but now, I'm not sure. Poirot patted her hand. Courage, mademoiselle. You have helped Hercule. Poirot greatly. Stay close to others and say nothing to Monsieur Langston. As Clara nodded, Poirot moved to the library where Dr. Evelyn Marsh was writing in her notebook. Madame, he said, you observe much. Have you seen a man with a scar perhaps among the crew? Dr. Marsh adjusted her spectacles. I saw someone like that, yes, near the cargo hold 2 nights ago. He was with Victor arguing. I didn't get a good look, but he wasn't in a standard uniform, more like a dock worker's. Poirot's eyes gleamed. Merci, and your notes, what do they reveal about the passengers? Fear, she said curtly. Guilt. Victor's hiding something. Clara's scared, Grayson's a drunk, and Dubois, he's a ghost, always slipping away. Poirot nodded, her observations confirming his own. He sought Mr. Dubois next, finding him in the smoking lounge, his cigar smoldering. Monsieur Dubois, Poirot said, you are a man of secrets. The broker, the sapphires, the smuggling. Your name is whispered in this affair. Speak, or I will uncover the truth myself. Dubois' smile was thin, his accent wavering. You're chasing shadows, Poirot. I'm a businessman, nothing more. A businessman, Poirot said, who knows more than he says. The cigar, from the ball. It is yours, oui? A rare brand, not found on this ship. Dubois' hand twitched, but he said nothing, rising and leaving. Poirot's suspicions deepened. Dubois was either the broker or closely tied to him. By afternoon, Poirot returned to Hargrove's cabin, re-examining the safe. The list, broker, 50,000, Langston, 20,000, was a roadmap to the smuggling ring. The captain's confession had confirmed Hargrove's role, but the broker's identity remained elusive. The blue thread from Clara's porthole, the oil. Chapter 9, A Storm at Sea, the SS. Aurora plowed through the Mediterranean, its once steady rhythm disrupted by the gathering clouds that darkened the horizon. The air grew heavy, the tang of salt now laced with the electric promise of a storm. The ship, a beacon of luxury with its gleaming decks and gilded salons, was a fragile refuge against the brewing tempest and the human storm of deceit within its walls. Hercule Poirot, clad in a tailored navy suit, his mustache a precise arc, stood at his suite's porthole, watching the sea churn. The murder of Sir Reginald Hargrove, the theft of Clara Beaumont's sapphire necklace, Victor Langston's fall, the midnight scream, and Captain Whitaker's confession had tightened the web of suspicion. Poirot's desk held his clues. The smuggled sapphire, the burlap fragment, the oil smear, the threatening letter, the forged manifest, the list naming the broker, the blue thread, and the cigar butt. Each was a thread in the tapestry of crime, but the locked cabin and the elusive broker remained elusive. As the storm loomed, Poirot sensed the killer's desperation growing, and with it, the danger aboard the Aurora. The morning began in the dining salon, where breakfast was a tense affair, the clink of cutlery sharp against the passengers' hushed voices. The approaching storm had confined most to the interior, their faces pale under the chandelier's glow. Clara Beaumont sat near a window, her auburn hair loose, her eyes shadowed with worry. Victor Langston, his arm still in a sling, sat beside her, his expression guarded. Dr. Evelyn Marsh scribbled in her notebook, her spectacles glinting, while Harold Grayson, red-faced and irritable, complained about the ship's swaying. Mr. Dubois lingered in a corner, his fedora a shield, his water glass untouched. Captain Whitaker, presiding, looked gaunt, his confession weighing heavily as he avoided Poirot's gaze. Poirot took a seat, his coffee served by a jittery waiter. "Mademoiselle Beaumont," he said, bowing slightly, "you appear troubled." "Is it the storm or something closer to the heart?" Clara's fingers twisted a napkin. "Both, Monsieur Poirot. This ship feels like a trap, and Victor, he's not himself. He won't talk about the fall or the necklace." Victor's eyes narrowed. "Clara, enough." Poirot's stirring trouble as usual. "Monsieur Langston," Poirot said, his tone serene. "Trouble is already here. Your fall was no accident, and the necklace's theft is linked to Sir Reginald's murder. Perhaps you can clarify your meetings with the broker mentioned in Hargrove's papers." Victor's jaw clenched, but he said nothing, turning to his coffee. Poirot's gaze shifted to Dr. Marsh. "Madame, your observations are keen. Have you noted anything new about our passengers?" Dr. Marsh adjusted her spectacles. "Tension, Monsieur Poirot. Clara's fear, Victor's secrecy, Grayson's bluster, they're all masks. And Dubois, he's too quiet, like a predator waiting." "Bien," Poirot said, filing away her words. He glanced at Dubois, whose eyes met his briefly before looking away. The man's silence was a challenge, his role as the broker increasingly likely. As breakfast ended, the ship lurched, a gust of wind rattling the windows. Passengers gasped, clutching their chairs. Whitaker stood, his voice strained. "Ladies and gentlemen, a storm is approaching. Please remain indoors until it passes. The crew is prepared." The announcement did little to calm the crowd, and Poirot sensed an opportunity. A storm would trap the suspects together, their nerves frayed, their secrets more likely to slip. He sought out Whitaker, finding him on the bridge, barking orders to the crew. "Monsieur le Capitaine," Poirot said, "this storm is a complication but also a chance. The killer is cornered. I need access to the crew's quarters to question them about the broker." Whitaker's face was grim. "The crew's busy, Poirot, but I'll arrange it. Just be quick, this storm's worse than we expected." "Merci," Poirot said, his mind already turning to Jenkins, the head steward, whose nervous demeanor made him a key figure. He descended to the crew quarters, a cramped maze of bunks and lockers, the air thick with the smell of oil and sweat. Jenkins was there, folding linens, his hands trembling. "Monsieur Jenkins," Poirot said, his voice soft but piercing, "you delivered messages for Sir Reginald to the broker. Describe this man." Jenkins dropped a sheet, his face pale. "I told you, sir, I didn't know his name. I just left notes where Sir Reginald said, 'Near the cargo hold, usually.' I never saw a scar." "Vraiment?" Poirot said, leaning closer. "Yet you saw someone near the lifeboats the night of the scream, no? And heard footsteps by Hargrove's cabin. Your memory, monsieur, is selective." Jenkins swallowed, his eyes darting. "I was scared, sir. This ship, it's not safe. People are watching, listening. Who watches?" Poirot pressed, his tone sharp. Jenkins shook his head, his voice a whisper. "I don't know. But they're everywhere. Poirot dismissed him, noting the steward's terror. Jenkins was either complicit or a pawn, his fear a clue to the broker's influence. As he left the quarters, the ship lurched again, a deep groan echoing through the hull. The storm was upon them, and Poirot felt the pressure mounting. He returned to the Grand Salon, now a refuge for passengers seeking shelter. Clara and Victor sat by a window, their conversation hushed but tense. Dr. Marsh was there, her notebook open, while Grayson drank heavily at the bar. Dubois stood near a curtained alcove, his eyes scanning the room. Poirot approached Clara, his cane tapping. "Mademoiselle, a word in private?" She followed him to a quiet corner, her face pale. "Monsieur Poirot, I'm frightened. Victor's hiding something, and now this storm. It feels like the ship itself is against us." "Courage, mademoiselle," Poirot said. "The storm will pass, and so will this mystery. Tell me, have you recalled anything more about the scarred man in the cargo hold?" Clara hesitated, her voice low. "Only that he called Victor partner. I thought it was a mistake, but... oh, I'm not sure." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Partner? A most revealing word. Merci, mademoiselle. Stay near others, and lock your cabin tonight." As Clara returned to Victor, Poirot sought Dr. Marsh, who was writing furiously. "Madame," he said, "your notes are a treasure. Have you seen the broker? A man with a scar, perhaps among the crew?" Dr. Marsh's pen paused. "I saw him again last night near the infirmary after Victor's fall. He was speaking with someone, too dark to see who, but his voice was rough, commanding." "Commanding," Poirot repeated, his mind racing. "And this other person? Male or female?" "Male," she said. "But I couldn't make out more. The storm was starting and I went inside." Poirot nodded, adding her account to his ledger. The broker was active, his presence a shadow over the ship. He moved to the bar where Grayson was slurring to the bartender. "Monsieur Grayson," Poirot said, "you knew Sir Reginald's business. Did he ever mention a broker or sapphires?" Grayson laughed, his voice thick. "Hargrove was knee-deep in shady deals, gems, art, you name it. Never heard of a broker, but he owed money to someone big. Bet that's why he's dead." "Merci," Poirot said, his suspicions of a financial motive growing. He glanced at Dubois, who met his gaze briefly before slipping away. The man's evasiveness was a red flag, his cigar butt a clue to his presence at key moments. As the storm intensified, the ship rocked, glasses sliding off tables, passengers clutching armrests. Poirot felt the tension rise, the confined space a pressure cooker for secrets. He sought out Dubois, finding him in the smoking lounge, his cigar smoldering. "Monsieur Dubois," Poirot said, "you are a man of shadows. The broker, the sapphires, Victor's fall. You know more than you say. Speak, or I will expose you." Dubois' smile was thin, his accent wavering. "You're bold, Poirot, but you're fishing. I'm a merchant, nothing more." "A merchant," Poirot said, "whose cigar was found at the ball and whose accent betrays him. Are you the broker, monsieur?" Dubois stood, his eyes cold. "Careful, Poirot. Some truths are better left buried." As Dubois left, Poirot's mind churned. The man was involved, perhaps as the broker himself, but proving it required more evidence. The storm raged outside, waves crashing against the hull, the ship groaning under the strain. Poirot returned to the salon where passengers huddled, their faces pale. Clara clutched Victor's hand, her fear palpable. Dr. Marsh watched, her pen still. Grayson drank, oblivious to the chaos. Whitaker paced, his nerves frayed. A sudden cry pierced the din, a man's voice sharp with panic. "He's gone! He's not in his cabin!" The crowd turned and Poirot saw a crewman soaked from the deck pointing toward the door. "Mr. Dubois, he's missing." Poirot's heart quickened. "Mon Dieu," he murmured, pushing through. The crowd. "Show me his cabin, vite." The crewman led him to Dubois' suite, a modest space on the veranda deck. The door was ajar, the room empty. The bed was unmade, A half-packed suitcase open on the floor. A single cigar butt, identical to the one from the ball, lay on the desk. Poirot examined the room, finding a scrap of paper under the bed, a note written in a hurried hand. "Meet me. Cargo hold. Midnight. Broker." The ink was fresh, the paper crumpled. "Sacre bleu," Poirot said, pocketing the note. Dubois was either a victim or a fugitive, and the cargo hold was the key. He instructed the crewman to alert Whitaker, then headed to the cargo hold, the ship rocking violently. The hold was a cavern of crates, the air damp and cold. Poirot moved carefully, his flashlight cutting through the gloom. Near the back, he found a crate with a broken lock, the same one where he'd found the sapphire. It was empty now, but a fresh oil stain marked the floor, matching his sample. Chapter 10. The second victim. The SS Aurora shuddered under the relentless assault of the Mediterranean storm, its decks slick with rain and its lanterns flickering in the gale. The ship, a beacon of luxury now battered by wind and waves, was a microcosm of chaos, its passengers confined indoors by the tempest and gripped by fear. The murder of Sir Reginald Hargrove, the theft of Clara Beaumont's sapphire necklace, Victor Langston's near-fatal fall, the midnight scream, Captain Whitaker's confession, and the disappearance of Mr. Dubois had woven a tapestry of dread. Hercule Poirot, his charcoal suit pristine despite the turmoil, stood in his suite, his little gray cells ablaze. His desk held a constellation of clues: the smuggled sapphire, the burlap fragment, the oil smear, the threatening letter, the forged manifest, the list naming the broker, the blue thread, the cigar butt, and the note found in Dubois' cabin. The locked cabin and the broker's identity were the heart of the mystery, but now, with Dubois missing, Poirot sensed the killer's desperation escalating. As the storm raged, a second victim would emerge, tightening the noose around the murderer. The morning was dark, the sky a roiling mass of clouds that cast the dining salon in a gloomy half-light. Breakfast was a tense affair, the clatter of cutlery drowned by the storm's howl. Passengers huddled at tables, their faces pale, their whispers sharp with panic. Clara Beaumont sat alone, her auburn hair disheveled, her eyes red from sleeplessness. Victor Langston, his arm still in a sling, was absent, confined to the infirmary. Dr. Evelyn Marsh scribbled in her notebook, her spectacles glinting, while Harold Grayson, hungover and irritable, nursed a whiskey. Captain Whitaker, presiding, looked like a man on the edge, his ruddy face ashen. The absence of Mr. Dubois hung over the room like a specter, his disappearance the latest twist in the Aurora's nightmare. Poirot entered, his cane tapping softly, and took a seat near Clara. "Mademoiselle Beaumont," he said, his voice gentle, "you are distressed. Is it the storm or the shadow of Monsieur Dubois' absence?" Clara's hands twisted a napkin. "Both, Monsieur Poirot. Dubois. He was always watching, like he knew something. Now he's gone. And I'm afraid Victor's next." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Monsieur Langston is safe for now, mademoiselle. Tell me, have you recalled anything more about the scarred man, the broker?" Clara hesitated, her voice low. "Only that he called Victor partner. I keep hearing it in my head. What if Victor's involved in it, whatever killed Sir Reginald?" "Courage," Poirot said, patting her hand. "The truth is near. Stay among others and lock your cabin." He turned to Dr. Marsh, who looked up from her notebook. "Madam," he said, "your observations are invaluable. Have you noted anything about Monsieur Dubois' behavior before he vanished?" Dr. Marsh's lips thinned. "He was elusive, always on the fringes. Last night during the storm I saw him near the cargo hold speaking with a crewman. Then he was gone." "A crewman," Poirot repeated, his mind flashing to the scarred man. "Merci. Your eyes miss nothing." As he sipped his coffee, Poirot glanced at Whitaker, who avoided his gaze. The captain's confession about the smuggling ring had exposed his complicity, but his fear suggested he was a pawn, not a mastermind. Grayson, slurring at the bar, was a distraction, his bitterness a motive but his drunkenness a liability. The broker, likely the scarred man, was the key, and Dubois' disappearance was no coincidence. After breakfast, Poirot sought Whitaker, finding him on the bridge barking orders to navigate the storm. "Monsieur le Capitaine," Poirot said, "Monsieur Dubois' absence is troubling. The note in his cabin, 'Meet me, cargo hold, midnight,' suggests foul play. I require a search of the lower decks, particularly the engine room." Whitaker's face paled. "The engine room? It's dangerous in this storm, Poirot. But I'll send a crew. Dubois, you think he's dead?" "Perhaps," Poirot said, his tone grave. "Or hiding. Either way, the broker is involved, and you know more than you've said. Who is he?" Whitaker shook his head, his voice trembling. "I told you I only saw him once in Marseille. A scarred man, rough like a dock worker. Hargrove called him essential." "Essential," Poirot murmured. "Merci. Ensure the search is thorough." Leaving the bridge, Poirot descended to the cargo hold, the ship's lurching making each step precarious. The hold was a labyrinth of crates, the air damp and heavy. He retraced his steps to the crate with the broken lock where he'd found the sapphire. The oil stain was fresh, and a faint scuff mark nearby suggested recent activity. "Mon Dieu," he said, his flashlight sweeping the shadows. A noise, a metallic clank, made him freeze. "Qui est là?" he called, but the storm's roar drowned any reply. The hold was empty, but Poirot's instinct screamed danger. He returned to the main deck where passengers were confined to the salons, their nerves frayed by the storm. Clara sat with a group of minor passengers, her eyes darting to the windows. Dr. Marsh was in the library, her notebook open. Grayson drank at the bar while Whitaker coordinated the search. Poirot sought out Jenkins, the head steward, finding him in the crew mess, polishing silver with shaking hands. "Monsieur Jenkins," Poirot said, his voice sharp, "you delivered messages to the broker. Monsieur Dubois is missing, and a note in his cabin points to the cargo hold. What do you know?" Jenkins dropped a spoon, his face pale. "Nothing, sir. I swear I only left notes where Sir Reginald told me. I never saw Dubois last night." "Vraiment?" Poirot said, leaning closer. "Yet you saw someone near the lifeboats, heard footsteps by Hargrove's cabin. Your fear, monsieur, betrays you. Speak, or the consequences will be severe." Jenkins's eyes filled with tears. I saw a man, sir, near the engine room last night after the storm started. He had a scar, like you said. He was carrying something, a bag, heavy. I ran before he saw me." "A bag," Poirot repeated, his mind flashing to Clara's midnight scream. "Merci, stay here and say nothing." Jenkins' account was a breakthrough, linking the broker to the engine room. Poirot hurried to the bridge where Whitaker was receiving reports from the search crew. "Captain," Poirot said, "focus the search on the engine room. Jenkins saw a scarred man there, carrying a heavy bag." Whitaker's face drained of color. "The engine room? It's a death trap in this storm, but I'll send men." As the crew mobilized, Poirot returned to the salon where passengers whispered about Dubois' disappearance. Clara approached, her voice trembling. "Monsieur Poirot, is it true? Is Dubois dead?" "We do not know," Poirot said, his tone soothing. "But the storm hides many things, mademoiselle. Stay calm." Dr. Marsh joined them, her notebook tucked under her arm. "Poirot," she said, "I heard about the engine room. If Dubois is there, he's not hiding. He's been hidden." "Précisément," Poirot said. "Your medical expertise, madame. If we find him, will you assist?" She nodded, her eyes sharp. "Of course, but be prepared for the worst." The storm's fury peaked, the ship rocking violently, glasses shattering on the floor. Poirot felt the tension rise, the confined space a crucible for secrets. A crewman burst into the salon, his face pale, his uniform soaked. "Monsieur Poirot." "Captain, we found him. In the engine room." Poirot's heart quickened. "Show me," he said, following the crewman through the ship's swaying corridors. Dr. Marsh and Whitaker joined, their faces grim. The engine room was a cavern of heat and noise, its massive pistons pounding like a heartbeat. The air was thick with oil and steam, the floor slick. Near a maintenance hatch, the crew had gathered, their lanterns illuminating a crumpled figure. It was Mr. Dubois, his fedora gone, his face pale, his eyes staring blankly at the ceiling. A dark stain spread across his shirt and a glass vial lay beside him, its contents gone. Dr. Marsh knelt, her fingers probing his neck. "He's dead," she said, her voice clinical. "Poisoned, likely cyanide based on the smell. Dead for hours." Poirot's gaze swept the scene, cataloging every detail. The vial was unmarked, the stain bloodless, suggesting the poison was ingested, not injected. Dubois' hands were clenched as if in pain, and a scrap of burlap was caught in his sleeve, matching the fragment from the lifeboats. "Mon Dieu," Poirot murmured. A second victim, and no accident. He turned to Whitaker. "Captain, seal this area. No one enters until I say. And find the scarred man. Jenkins saw him here last night." Whitaker nodded, his voice hoarse. "Good Lord, Poirot, another murder? This ship's a slaughterhouse." "No," Poirot said. "A stage, and the killer is its director." "Madame." "Marsh, your thoughts?" Dr. Marsh stood, wiping her hands. "The poison was fast-acting, administered recently. He was lured here, given the note in his cabin. The killer knew his movements." Poirot nodded, pocketing the burlap scrap. The note, "Meet me, cargo hold, midnight," was a ruse, leading him here instead. The broker is behind this, silencing a threat. He examined Dubois' body, finding a hidden pocket in his coat. Inside was a small key, unlike any on the ship, and a crumpled photograph of Dubois with a younger man, both standing on a Marseille dock. The younger man bore a striking resemblance to Victor Langston. "Sacre bleu," Poirot said, his mind racing. Dubois and Victor were connected, perhaps partners in the smuggling ring. Leaving the engine room, Poirot instructed the crew to move Dubois' body to the infirmary, where Dr. Marsh would conduct a cursory autopsy. He returned to the salon, where passengers were buzzing with news of the discovery. Clara gasped, clutching her chair. "Dubois? Dead? Monsieur Poirot, who's next?" Chapter 11. The Hidden Passage. The SS Aurora emerged from the Mediterranean storm, its decks glistening under a tentative sun that pierced the retreating clouds. The ship, a floating palace of opulence, bore the scars of the tempest, scattered, deck chairs, sodden awnings, and a faint creak in its timbers. But it sailed on toward Marseille, now less than a day away. Within its gilded salons, the atmosphere was electric with fear. The murders of Sir Reginald Hargrove and Mr. Dubois, the theft of Clara Beaumont's sapphire necklace, Victor Langston's fall, the midnight scream, and Captain Whitaker's confession fueling a torrent of suspicion. Hercule Poirot, his suit a crisp shade of slate, his mustache a perfect crescent, stood in his suite, his desk a map of clues: the smuggled sapphire, the burlap fragment, the oil smear, the threatening letter, the forged manifest, the list naming, the broker, the blue thread, the cigar butt, the note from Dubois' cabin, the key, and the photograph linking Dubois to Victor. The locked cabin, the broker's identity, and now Dubois' poisoning were the heart of the mystery. But a new discovery, a hidden passage, would bring Poirot closer to the truth. The morning began in the grand salon, where breakfast was served, amid a hush broken only by the clink of porcelain and the distant hum of the engines. Passengers, confined by the storm's aftermath, wore strained expressions, their eyes darting to Poirot as he entered. Clara Beaumont sat near a porthole, her auburn hair pinned tightly, her face pale with exhaustion. Victor Langston, his arm, still in a sling, sat beside her, his dark eyes wary. Dr. Evelyn Marsh scribbled in her notebook, her spectacles catching the light, while Harold Grayson, red-faced and subdued, sipped coffee. Captain Whitaker, presiding, looked like a man awaiting judgment, his hands trembling as he avoided Poirot's gaze. The absence of Mr. Dubois, now confirmed dead by poison, hung over the room, a silent accusation. Poirot took a seat near Clara, his coffee served by a nervous waiter. "Mademoiselle Beaumont," he said, his voice gentle, "you are weary. The storm has passed, but the danger remains. Have you recalled anything more about the broker, or Monsieur Dubois? Clara's fingers clutched her cup. I keep seeing that scarred man in my mind, Monsieur Poirot. He called Victor partner, and now Dubois is dead. I'm terrified Victor's involved. Victor's jaw tightened. Clara, stop. Poirot's twisting your words. I told you, I don't know any broker. Monsieur Langston, Poirot said, his tone serene. Your denials grow thin. A photograph links you to Dubois and your name is in Hargrove's ledger, the sapphires, the smuggling. Your silence protects no one but the killer. Victor's eyes flashed, but he said nothing, turning to his plate. Poirot glanced at Dr. Marsh, who looked up from her notebook. Madame, he said, your observations of Dubois' death, cyanide, you said. Could the vial have been planted after death? Dr. Marsh's lips thinned. Possible, but unlikely. The vial was clean, no fingerprints, as if placed deliberately. The killer wanted us to think poison, perhaps to mask another cause. Curieux, Poirot murmured, his mind racing. He turned to Whitaker. Monsieur le Capitaine, the search for the scarred man. Any progress? Whitaker's voice was hoarse. Nothing, Poirot. The crews checked every deck, but in this storm, he could be hiding anywhere. Or among us, Poirot said, his eyes sweeping the room. Grayson, nursing his coffee, seemed oblivious, but his bitterness toward Hargrove was a motive. The broker, likely the scarred man, was the key, and Dubois' death suggested he was silencing witnesses. After breakfast, Poirot returned to Hargrove's cabin, determined to unravel the locked room mystery. The room was as he'd left it, the blood-stained rug a grim reminder of the crime. The desk held Hargrove's papers, the safe its secrets, but the lock on the door remained the enigma. Poirot re-examined the frame, running his gloved fingers along the wood. A faint seam, barely visible, caught his eye near the hinge, a panel, cleverly disguised. He pressed it, and with a soft click, a section of the wall slid inward, revealing, a narrow passage, mon Dieu, Poirot whispered, his heart quickening. The passage was dark, its walls damp, the air thick with the scent of oil. His flashlight revealed a cramped corridor, barely wide enough for a man, running parallel to the cabin. Footprints in the dust, recent by their clarity, suggested it had been used. The locked cabin, Poirot murmured, is no longer locked. He followed the passage, its twists leading to a maintenance hatch near the engine room. The hatch was ajar, and beyond it, the hum of machinery was deafening. Poirot emerged, finding himself in a service corridor, the oil-stained floor matching his sample from the lifeboats. A scrap of burlap, caught on a pipe, confirmed the link to Dubois' death. Sacre bleu, he said, pocketing the scrap. The passage explained the locked cabin. Hargrove's killer had entered and left unseen, locking the door from inside before escaping. Poirot returned to the bridge, where Whitaker was coordinating repairs from the storm. Monsieur le Capitaine, he said, I have found a hidden passage leading from Hargrove's cabin to the engine room. The locked room mystery is solved, but the killer's identity remains. This passage, was it known to the crew? Whitaker's face paled. A passage? No, Poirot, I swear I didn't know. Hargrove insisted on that cabin, said it was private. Maybe he built it himself. Or used it for smuggling, Poirot said, his eyes gleaming. The broker used this passage, I am certain. Search it, Captain, and find where it leads. Whitaker nodded, barking orders to a crewman. Poirot descended to the engine room where Dubois' body had been found. The maintenance hatch was near the spot, and a faint oil smear marked the floor linking it to the passage. He examined the area, finding a discarded glove, leather, worn, with a trace of cyanide on its cuff. Careless, Poirot murmured, wrapping it in his handkerchief. He sought out Dr. Marsh, finding her in the infirmary, preparing Dubois' body for storage. Madame, he said, showing her the glove. This was near the engine room with cyanide. Could it belong to the killer? Dr. Marsh examined it, her eyes sharp. The cyanide matches the vial's residue. The glove's small, Male but slender, or perhaps a woman's. The killer was meticulous, but this is a mistake. Bien, Poirot said, adding the glove to his clues. He questioned her about the autopsy. Any surprises, madame? She adjusted her spectacles. A bruise on Dubois' neck, pre-mortem, as if he was restrained before the poison. He fought, but not enough to stop it. Poirot nodded, the bruise a clue to the killer's strength. He sought Clara next, finding her on the sun deck, now cleared of storm debris. Mademoiselle, he said, a passage has been found explaining the locked cabin. The broker used it, and now Dubois is dead. Tell me, Monsieur Langston, did he know of Hargrove's cabin? Clara hesitated, her voice trembling. He visited Sir Reginald often, but he never mentioned a passage. He did say Hargrove was paranoid, always locking doors. Paranoid, Poirot repeated, yet betrayed. Merci, mademoiselle. Stay vigilant. He visited Victor in the infirmary, his face bruised but alert. Victor Langston, Poirot said, holding up the photograph. You and Dubois in Marseille. The passage in Hargrove's cabin. Did you know of it? Victor's eyes narrowed. I told you that photo's old. Hargrove's cabin? I went there for business, nothing more. No passage. Vraiment? Poirot said, his tone sharp. Yet the broker used it to kill Hargrove, and now Dubois. The glove with cyanide. Yours, perhaps? Victor's face paled, but he shook his head. You're mad, Poirot. I'm no killer. Poirot left, his suspicions deepening. Victor was either lying or protecting someone, his link to Dubois undeniable. He sought out Jenkins, the nervous steward in the crew mess, finding him polishing brass. Monsieur Jenkins, he said, a passage was used to kill Hargrove. You saw the scarred man near the engine room. Did he carry a glove or anything unusual? Jenkins dropped his cloth, his face white. I don't know, sir. It was dark and I ran, but I saw him drop something, maybe a glove, near the hatch. Merci, Poirot said, dismissing him. Jenkins's fear was a crack in the killer's armor, his sightings tying the broker to the crime scenes. By afternoon, the crew reported the passage's extent. It linked Hargrove's cabin to the engine, room, cargo hold, and lifeboats. A smuggler's dream. Poirot inspected the lifeboat exit, finding another oil smear and a blue thread, reinforcing the network of clues. The passage was the killer's secret, but its discovery exposed their movements. At dinner, the dining salon was a cauldron of tension. Clara sat with Victor, her eyes avoiding his. Dr. Marsh watched, her notebook open. Grayson, sober for once, muttered about Hargrove's enemies. Whitaker, presiding, looked ill, his confession and the passage's discovery weighing heavily. Poirot dined alone, overhearing whispers. Another murder. The ship's cursed. The broker. He's still here. After dinner, Poirot walked the deck, the sea calm but the air heavy with anticipation. The lifeboats loomed, their canvas covers hiding no more secrets. A rustle, a footstep, made him pause. Qui est là? He called, but the night was silent. He returned to his suite, spreading his clues. The sapphire, the burlap, the oil, the letter, the manifest, the list, the thread, the cigar, the note, the key, the photograph, and the glove. The passage was a revelation, but the broker's identity, perhaps Victor, perhaps another, remained elusive.